Begin slow, eerie AI narration, voice trembling at key moments, background ambience, distant whispers, slow dripping water, a faint, rhythmic squeak of a wheelchair moving on its own. Chapter 1. The asylum's dark past my hands shook as I read the old newspaper clippings. Blackwood Asylum, House of Horrors. Built in 1892, it wasn't just a hospital, it was a tomb for the damned. The article spoke of electroshock therapy that left patients convulsing, illegal lobotomies performed in the dead of night, and worst of all, the vanishing patients. Officially, it closed in 1978 after a mass suicide, 17 bodies found hanging in the East Wing. But locals whispered something worse. They didn't kill themselves. She did. My stomach twisted. Why were we doing this? Chapter 2. The dare, come on. Don't be a coward. Jake sneered, but his voice wavered. We were urban explorers, but this felt different. Legends of Blackwood were blood-soaked. Shadow figures pressed against broken windows. Screams that weren't human. And her, the phantom nurse, Nurse Eleanor Voss, a monster in white. They said she snapped one night, butchering patients with a scalpel before hanging herself in the very room where she committed her atrocities. But the worst part, she still walks the halls, looking for new patients. My breath hitched. We shouldn't be here. Chapter 3. Midnight exploration. The asylum loomed before us, its shattered windows like black, empty eyes. The air reeked of rotting flesh and antiseptic, a nauseating mix that made my throat burn, creak. The front door opened on its OW and my heart slammed against my ribs. The flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows that twitched unnaturally. Then, footsteps. Not ours. Shoo. It's time for your medicine. A woman's voice, sweet, like poisoned honey. My blood turned to ice. Chapter 4. The phantom nurse appears. We ran, but the halls stretched endlessly, doors slamming shut behind us. A gurney rolled toward us, no one pushing it. Then, we saw her at the end of the corridor. Nurse Voss stood motionless, her uniform stained brown with old blood. Her face was wrong, too pale, lips stretched too wide in a grin that showed too many teeth and one hand. A rusted syringe, dripping black fluid in the other. A scalpel, glinting in the dim light. "You're sick," she crooned, tilting her head. "Let me help you." Terror seized me. Couldn't move, couldn't scream. Chapter 5. The escape, or lack thereof. We bolted, but the asylum wouldn't let us leave. The exit doors were bricked over, the windows barred from the outside. "No, no, no," Mike sobbed, clawing at the walls. Then, a wet thud. I turned. Nurse Voss dragged Jake into the darkness, his screams choking off as something glinted in her hand. "Don't worry, dear." Her breath was rotten, her fingers too cold as they brushed my neck. "You'll feel better soon." Epilogue. The only survivor? I woke up at dawn, outside the asylum, my clothes soaked in blood that wasn't mine. The police found nothing. No Jake, no Mike, just a neatly folded nurse's uniform in the operating room, and a scalpel, still wet. Now, every night, I hear her voice in the darkness. "You'll be back," a whisper, a promise. They always come back. End narration with slow, distorted laughter that morphs into a choked scream before cutting to silence. Would you dare step inside Blackwood Asylum? Or is the phantom nurse already inside your house? Subscribe if you dare.